Hi, you're listening to Playing Out from the Bar. Please be aware this podcast contains strong language.
Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of our brand new podcast, Playing Out from the Bar. I am Jack Lacey and I've been joined once again in the bar by Lewis Trice and Lewis Dawson, aka Tricey and Dobby. How are we, lads? Are we ready for our second attempt at Playing Out from the Bar?
Evening, mate. How you doing? Sorry, I was waiting. Then I thought Tricey was going to jump in.
I also thought Tricey was going to jump in.
I thought you addressed him first. So
Yeah, I was sure of that, but no, it's good. At least one of us is ready again.
Sorry, yeah. To be honest, once you counted it down, I tuned off a little bit and started just fanning around. So.
Yeah, you two are on autopilot. We should say for the listeners' benefit as well, we have had some. We've had like a technical battle already tonight, so just to get to this point is a success in itself, really. But
we got someone in deep dark Lancashire where dial-up still relied upon.
Someone in Tricey's house made a phone call, and it just the whole net went off.
Yeah, I'll be seeking legal proceedings there with Virgin Media, so don't worry about that.
We start every week, or we were going to start every episode by setting out our tactics, asking what are we drinking tonight, boys. So, I mean, have we still got a drink at this point, Dobby?
Yeah, I've still got one on the go, mate. Actually, a bit more prepared this week rather than just the loose Cobra that was rolling around the fridge last time out. I've actually gone down there, one of the local pubs. And gone for so I've gone down to North Bar, which is in Leeds city centre, just down the road from me. So it's part of North Brewing Company, which is like a local brewery, and I've got one of their pale ales. So it's called Sputnik, and I think it's quite nice, 5%, quite steady. Could probably sit here and get through a few of them, and it's only a couple of miles up the road as well, so it's nice to support local.
The can looks interesting on Zoom. I mean, I can see the benefit of it from that, and it does look, that's offering nothing in terms of taste, but just looks like a nice can to drink from. Tricey, what are we on?
I'm on the Brewdog Punk IPA. Mum and Dad came over at the weekend, and my dad gave me a nice little delivery of a 6-pack of these. So, like I said last week, though, whenever I go in Asda now, though, I'm treating myself down the beer aisle, the IPAs, the mix and match. So, Brewdog this week for me.
I'm still kind of getting up to speed with the whole IPAs and craft beer hype. So
it's something that lockdown's really evolved in me. Sometimes, when you go to a pub, you just want something alcoholic and fizzy, not too arsed, really. But
yeah.
I'm not one of these that the hops has to be at the right temperature and all that shite. But it's I quite like doing something different with it. Using Untapped as well, seeing the ratings on it and stuff.
Yeah. I know. But you're not too good for Carlin yet, are you, Trice?
No. Well, it's probably about 70% of my bodily fluid.
that'll always be the go-to. That's
true.
I'm amazed that a Carling hasn't appeared on either episode so far yet. With you two, I just assumed that there was no chance that Carling would come this far Carling free.
Well, it is such a football beer, isn't it, Carling? That's it. We'll have to do an episode in Burton at the brewery.
I don't know about you though. I do feel like over the last 3 years, there's more Moretti's and Amstels creeping into pubs on tap, and there's less Carlins, which is a bit of a growing concern for me. I do like a Moretti. I do really like one, but Carlin used to be 90% of pubs. I feel like that percentage is going down.
There's a stigma, isn't there, to Carlin?
There's a slight worry.
Yeah, I feel the connotations attached to just the more sort of political angle has not helped with Carling, really.
But anyways, sorry for getting chatting about the beers. What about you, Jack? What have you got?
Well, I'm boringly on just a San Miguel. I was on a much more interesting IPA earlier that I can't remember the name of, but that was when we started, and I've managed to drink it quickly while Tricey was getting his dial up sorted. So we'll move on from mine.
Let's not make that a running thing. Come on, don't
For the second episode, and it's already.
don't throw me under the bus for poor Wi-Fi for once.
That's such like a young lads thing. Like the second time we do this, someone's Wi-Fi doesn't work, they immediately get jumped on for having poor Wi-Fi.
It sticks with you.
Yeah.
If you ever was a gamer when you were young on PlayStation, people had a reputation for shit internet connection. That's you now, Tricey.
Yeah, well, I can only hope that it improves, can't I?
I feel like it's not really a neat segue on from the beers and the Wi-Fi to our other regular feature, but I'm going to do it now anyway. It's our mental health check-in. Tricey, I'll come to you first. What's been good and what's been bad this week?
So I'll start bad and then finish good. So the bad thing, it sounds so petty, right? But it's just a state of the world at the minute. Like I went to Aldi and there was a young lad on the till. The machine was going wrong for him, bless him. Like I had to wait probably 10 minutes, nothing was scanning. This old couple behind me in the queue were just going, oh, like for 10 minutes. And I just looked at him like, obviously masks on, coronavirus safe, etc. and stuff like that. But I just glared at this bloke because he was giving this young lad such a hard time. I think it's not his fault that the fucking conveyor's not working, is it? It's just back off. I gave him like a Roy Keane glare through my mask.
Nice.
But it just, it just pisses you off, something small like that for the rest of your day, really, because you think, like, where was that bloke? Why is he giving that lad a hard time? Like,
Yeah.
When he got going again, Trice, did he give you an easy time on his scanning? Because they're usually quite they're on the ball, aren't they? On the tills there, they almost like try and outdo you on pace. Like they try and scan things so before you can get it in the bag.
Yeah, yeah. Usually, like I like the challenge, but like I was a bit stressed out, so sort of had to repack in the car as well. That's the thing now, isn't it? But
I feel like the lad owed you some gratitude for that glare.
Well,
Trice. Like, he should have gone for a little.
Like
he should have gone for like a post touchline fist bump or something with you on the way out from your shopping.
Like who really is in that much of a rush that they have to wait? They have to be an arsehole to a kid for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, like no one needs that.
They're a much more tense place in the post-COVID world. I feel supermarkets, they've become a lot. Just everyone's on edge these days. But
Yeah, that is true.
I'm with you on that.
Then the good news is my mum and dad have come across from Scunthorpe for the last 4 days, and they've done a range of things with my little boy Alfie. So they took him on the steam railway in East Lancashire. Just things like that have been absolutely great to see him do stuff like that with his grandparents, and it's given me and Jess a bit of time to crack on with the house and do some DIY work, which is a bit of a feel good thing, really.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I did see earlier actually on I think it was on your Instagram, a little snap of what DIY have you been getting up to?
So we've basically redone our bedroom, done some panelling and stuff like that. So to say maybe 3 years ago I'd have a bit of a reputation for being the least handy person ever, I think you've come a long way, and you can be proud of my achievements and considering becoming a painter and decorator.
So on FIFA level, you're now probably at semi-pro, near and unprofessional in FIFA world. Do we think?
Yeah. A tradesman would probably spit at the work, but it's no bad job, really.
Shall we, Dobby? Do you want to go with your positive and negative?
Mine are pretty bland, and so my positive was the bank holiday weekend in general. I think was ready for a little bit of an extended break and have a bit of a blowout. 3 nights on a trot. So I went home for one of them. went out with some friends at home. Caught up with some family, went for some food with my girlfriend's family as well. And then I had some friends over in Leeds. So pretty action-packed weekend. Some would say potential super spreader if I am carrying any kind of coronavirus. Was a busy man.
Watch out for that in 2 weeks. Breaking story from this podcast.
Yeah, and then probably the negative is probably just a build on from that. I got that real back to work, like not depression, like anxiety, and just proper fed up with it. Where to the point on Monday night I was sat there like, you're a bit hungover, you've been drinking 3 nights in a row, and you're just like, do I really want to get up tomorrow? Is it really worth it? Like, is it time to pack it in, call it a day, like resign, like, maybe like go to New Zealand for a year and just see what that brings? I was thinking, you know what, I could see myself delivery driving. I could take that up as a job, just a steady wage, just working for DHL or something. So yeah, it was one of them Monday nights where it was just like, the last thing I want to do tomorrow is get up for work, and it was just a real net. I've not had that feeling in a while, and I was like, yeah, that's not nice. So
I feel like that mention, that quick name check for DHL was a bit like you were contracted to get that in there, a bit like Partridge, or the chocolate oranges are available from Rawlinson's. Yeah. I feel like you had to mention DHL.
Yeah, well, I would. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be mentioning Hermes. Like they're notoriously known as the nightmare delivery company out there. There's plenty of like social media complaints about Hermes drivers. I don't think I'd want to be associated with them. Yeah. Although one of my good friends, Max, is an account manager for them, so but I think they've had delivery drivers who killed rabbits before by chucking stuff over fences. So
bloody hell, there's some mad accusations flying around this earlier.
Yeah, for legal reasons, do we need a disclaimer? Like, you know,
I feel like Hermes have been taken down within 10 minutes of the second episode, which is good because last week it was Beer 52. This week it's Hermes. We're slowly just annoying or spreading rumours about major companies, which is good. It's good for takes them down a peg.
Well, we welcome any kind of sponsorship from Beer 52, don't we? But Hermes, I think if anyone at Hermes listens and they want to take us on, then bring it.
Can you?
They won't be able to find where we live anyway.
Are you backing up these anti-Hermes rumours, Tricey? Is this something you've experienced as well?
Well, yeah, I have actually. Yeah, when we got Alfie's car seat whatever it was, 2 years ago now, they delivered it to another number 8 within the same postcode as me.
How did you eventually get it back?
So I had to find the other number 8 within that postcode. So knocked on my neighbours' doors, and then realised it was actually this street along. And knocked on him, but they were out, so they'd put it at their parents around the corner. It was like, Jess was heavily pregnant at the time, so it was not ideal. But they did give us a full refund. So
when you said Jess was heavily pregnant, my instant thought was that she was the one having to go and knock on the doors at the time.
Well, we were doing it together.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I did need her to back me up, to be honest.
Brilliant.
What about you, Jack? Any pros or cons from the week?
Yeah, so my con, I feel it's a bit similar to last week. My negative thought, but it's just something that popped into my head this week. I think it's probably with like football, new football season on the horizon, and like everything sort of not back to normal yet, but kind of restarting a little bit. I just came to the realization that I've just not played football, like a proper competitive game of football, since about March, just before the lockdown, really. And I think I've realised that not just football, but just sort of any good, like I sort of need a bit of like semi-competitive exercise. I think it's just good for mental health and as well as physical health. I think it just keeps me ticking over, really. And I think now we've come to the end, like a long summer. It feels like a really long time since I've had that. And I don't know, it's just, it got me down a little bit, but then I should counteract that by thinking, well, new season's only a few weeks away, and hopefully I'll be back, onto a pitch, performing very inconsistently soon.
He'll be back out there.
It shouldn't be too much of a negative. But sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. My injury-prone career does cost me the ability to get back out onto playing 11. Well, it doesn't really. I use that as an excuse to not play 11 side anymore. since the age of about 19.
It's not an injury. It's just lack of fitness. It's like why is Dobby retired? It's just lack of fitness.
Yeah, we have got one dodgy knee now, so there is a bit more of a valid excuse in there.
Oh man!
After the leg break a few years ago. No, don't be
Oh, I did. I forgot that you broke your leg. Actually, that would have been a long-term recovery for you.
Yeah,
I don't think it ended your career though, did it?
No. I think it was done probably 3 years prior to that. When I say career, I mean my my amateur career was done 3 years prior to that.
Played
at the lowest of levels.
Yeah.
At least you didn't have a Dribril Cisse and broke it twice in like the same year or something like that. That's always a risk that you take by stepping back on the pitch.
What about positive for the week?
Yeah, well, my positive for the week is I've had a sort of nice 10 days holiday in Scotland in the Lake District. Done a bit of a road trip, as I was saying off air just before we started recording, and it just shows you. Yeah, went north of the border. It just shows, I don't want to sound too poncy about it, but it does show that you don't necessarily have to get on a plane to have a genuinely nice summer holiday. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's always nice to have 2 weeks of sunshine and Mediterranean sun in particular for me. But this was a different sort of, it was just good to get out, get some long walks in after a year of not leaving the house as much, and have some good beers and eat some good food. So yeah, I've had a good couple of weeks really. I can't complain too much, but good to be back. Good to be back in the bar for the second episode tonight. I mean, we've left a bit of an open-ended one tonight. It's sort of a classic introduction topic, I guess. But I think we're just going to sort of go through the clubs we support, give an understanding to the listeners really about why we support them, and any sort of little nuances that come with supporting our respective clubs and what it's like to be a fan. So I don't know how who wants to kick us off with this one? Tricey, do you want to walk us through your support?
Yeah. So my club is Scunthorpe United and has been for a while. Hometown team, but it's a bit of a strange club really at the minute, because I think it's probably a club that a lot of teams in the north are aware of. We punched above our weight for 2 or 3 seasons where we actually got into the Championship and beat the likes of Newcastle and stuff like that. But I think sort of fell down a bit recently, and we've had, it's quite a funny club as well, because if you look at Soccer Saturday, every goal scorer in the Football League, I bet probably 1 in 6 maybe or something like that on Soccer Saturday have had a stint at Glanford Park in the past. It is ridiculous. It's a good game to play actually. There's Hooper goal, Sharp goal. We've had absolutely loads of good strikers down the years, but it's a local club, and I think it sort of struggles with its expectations a bit now. I think there's a good stint of fans who, even when they were in the Championship, weren't happy. I remember drawing to Leicester at home, and they were booed off, and that was when when we were above the drop zone in the Championship. But I think it's what it does. What I'm proud for is that a lot of my mates are local Scunthorpe boys as well. So we've had some great trips. Road, getting a minibus to Morecambe and stuff like that. They're sort of the proper away days that you can really enjoy, I guess. It's just it'd be interesting to see what the expectations are this season, because I think the fans will sort of think, oh, we should be competing in the top end of League Two. But I think, to be honest, I think it sounds really negative, but I'm just happy if the club exists next season. Like there's with what's going on at the minute, and the Scunthorpe's chairman, for those that don't know, is Peter Swan. I think his wife's possibly the owner of Wilkinson, so he's got a fair amount of cash behind him, and I think he's quite involved in the strategy of recruitment and ongoings at the football club from like a playing point of view. And I'm not, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing really as things go forward, but in his 10 years so far, it's sort of been, it's been weird. It's very split as a club. Like, it's difficult to define what we actually are. But I think we're, a minnow, and funny in the sense that, some of the players we have, and that if there's a Leeds song or a Man United song or a Sheffield United song, the Scunthorpe fans will sing almost word for word the same song, but insert Scunny's player in.
Yeah,
I think
typical
sort of,
League Two adaptation of any any song that, that's got a good ring to it. His name will fit in there.
Yeah. It's
Trice, just going back to what you said a minute ago, and I was just thinking this when I grew up around Scunthorpe as well, so obviously like really familiar with the team and watched lots of games growing up and been to loads of games where you up and down the divisions actually. And I was going to say, do you think the club's maybe lost its kind of like identity and it's what its model is in recent years under like the new ownership? When we were younger, you mentioned some of them strikers. There seemed to be a real model there where year on year they'd be finding that next top striker and then they'd sell him on for 2 seasons time for millions. Do you think that they've kind of lost what that model is?
Well, yeah, I think they're obviously trying to get back to that with their recruitment at the minute, aren't they? They've, like a lot of clubs in League Two, they're going young. I think we've had 2 injuries so far pre-season, and now the average age of the squad's like well below 25. Once the senior pros have been injured, you just think like, under 23 squad as well. Sort of anyone who's on the radar even in like the National League and below is sort of going to get an opportunity as long as they're sort of under the age of 23, really. That is sort of what they need to, it annoys me when it's like, oh, why aren't we signing, if the window's open, why aren't we signing in, why aren't we signing in? The days of actually paying a transfer fee for Scunny have probably well gone. That's not going to happen really anymore. They have to go back to either using their own products and selling them on, or recruiting fantastically well, like getting Billy Sharp and selling him on for $1 million, getting Gary Hooper for however much it was and selling him on for $3 million. That is the type of thing they need to get back to. But it's just difficult to do that because every club is obviously wanting to do that as well. But I just feel it lacks its identity a bit at the minute, and I feel probably obviously geographically 2 hours away from Scunthorpe so I don't exactly get to the number of home games that I used to, but a lot of the away games are sort of like on that northwest circle really. But yeah, it is weird. Like I do feel sort of disillusioned with the club, I guess, but I sort of feel a bit like that with the entire, sport really. That it doesn't really feel real anymore. It doesn't have its soul, if you know what I mean. A bit of a purist like that.
The funniest Scunthorpe United game you've seen? What's the most memorable but just bizarre Scunthorpe United game you've seen? Any stand out or?
Oh, there's been a few. Yeah, there's been like looking back on it that year when we were fighting for promotion and like playing that Sheffield United team. They were sort of a year previous in their cycle, and you just look and Scunthorpe took like almost 3,000 fans to Bramall Lane for a league fixture. I think things like that just go unnoticed a little bit. But I remember promotion at Shrewsbury's ground for. Can you remember that? That was.
I went to that one actually. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I did as well. The old Gay Meadow, and Joe
Yeah.
Hart was actually like 12, pretty much in net for Shrewsbury. There's been some really sort of unique experiences, I guess, but obviously the highlight is for me as a fan was seeing us win at Wembley when we beat Millwall 3-2. I think that was bizarre, really, because Millwall sold out their allocation of 45,000 fans they had. I'm not sure they'd get that on a home game, but Scunthorpe had like 9,000, 10,000 in their end, and just that team, how it had been sort of come back down from the Championship and then scraped back into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they're at Wembley, like to go 1-0 up, 2-1, and Alexander's goal for Millwall. You just think
screamer, wasn't it? That
bloody hell, this ain't your day at all. Yeah, when he pops one in from pretty much the halfway line, and then that was just unreal. That I remember, sort of, Martin Wolford scored about the 80-odd minute, and just going absolutely mental. And as a teenager, just top was off, swinging it around my head.
Yeah. What about was you there for the Parlays opener away at Chelsea? And was it the FA Cup?
I was going to say, I think of those
what
early
year that
noughties FA Cup times.
Yeah, I remember listening to that on the radio. I wasn't actually at the ground, but obviously the footage is quite iconic because it's a bit of a Soccer Saturday coupe, isn't it? With Chris Kamara like, oh, there's been a goal at Stamford Bridge, and it's the League Two Scunthorpe. And you look at that Chelsea team in that sort of like first cycle of Abramovich's cash coming in. Like, they had some serious big hitters in that game. Like Drogba was playing, I think. Cudicini was in net, I believe, and that was good times. That's what Scunthorpe's about, really. If it's fighting for promotion or been a massive underdog in the cup games. I remember going to the Etihad and places like that and giving Man City a game for 20 minutes. And then I think Robinho just went. That was the time Robinho was at City, and he just turned it on and sort of the defending left a lot to be desired after that. But you can't beat stuff like that as a lower league club, and you just hope that every FA Cup draw or cup competition you get a big hitter away from home, the chance to see a new stadium. But then you also want your team to sort of do well and take a couple of hundred to Morecambe or to Oldham or any of these sort of League Two away days. I think the fans need to sort of get behind the club as well. That's what you want to see, really.
Yeah.
So, Dobby, do you want to sort of give us your take on what's it like to be a Leeds United fan?
Yeah. So as you say, my team's Leeds. Actually grew up in Scunthorpe, which is about an hour down the road from Leeds, for anyone who's not from the area. But I think there's quite a strong Leeds following actually in the North Lincolnshire region. I think it's probably because throughout the last 40-50 years, it's probably been one of the most closely connected, like, bigger clubs in brackets, depending on if you consider Leeds a big club. But we'll leave that debate to another day. But there's quite a big following around the area, and I think like a lot of lads, really, that stemmed from my dad. So as far back as I can remember, I've always just had Leeds kits. I was looking at one the other day, actually, got pulled out of the cupboard. One of the old white Strongbow kits with, I think, Harry Kewell on the back.
Beautiful.
Class.
Yeah, maybe not looked at so fondly anymore, given his time at Galatasaray. But back then, he was one of my footballing idols. But yeah, just as long back as I can remember, my dad was just instilling it in me. His old VCRs. From like the 70s, so 60s and 70s, the glory days for Leeds. I'd watched them as a kid. we'd get to the occasional game. It was a bit more difficult back then, given my age and the size and the position of the club. But yeah, it was really kind of ingrained into me, like I think any dad tries to do to their kid. As I started to grow up a little bit more, the club changed quite drastically, really. So going from a high stature Premier League club to one that quite quickly fell from that platform and into the Championship and even below that. So it was quite weird, really, to grow up from being young and it being on this platform with so many big European clubs to then becoming more into my teenage years, and the club was more on par with the likes of local teams like Barnsley and your Sheffields and even your Rotherhams at times. And I think one positive from that, though, that came was it made the club probably more accessible to me. Like I said, when I was young, it was kind of watching from afar most of the time. It was an hour down the road, so a lot of it was through television and through like magazines and through video. And only really getting to I've only probably seen Leeds in the Premier League a handful of times when I was young. So actually then that drop down the leagues probably made the club a bit more accessible to me. And when I reached my teenage years, I started to, it was quite easy to get tickets for home games and then start building up a bit of loyalty. And then eventually started to do quite a few of the away games as well. And I think a good thing from that as well that came was, I think it helped. It appealed to my dad once more. He kind of completely, I think, just when he got to the 90s, 2000s, he'd had his time watching the club, and then and was happy just kind of watching from afar at home. But once I got to an age where I was going, his interest kind of grew again, and he'd start coming with me in my teenage years. So yeah, it's been a weird evolution. I feel like we've done a kind of full 360 now, and we're back in the Premier League. So looking forward to kind of what lies ahead, and just it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but a real good journey, I think, to get to this point. Literally seeing some of the lowest of lows with that club in terms of ownership, management, results. It's been a real journey, but one that I probably wouldn't change just because of how accessible it became for me and some of the memories that came with it.
I sort of like, I'd love to when you consider like the whole period together, Dobby, is because you've sort of supported them over obviously quite an interesting period so far in the club's history. What would be the, like, both sort of the lowest point you've experienced as a Leeds fan, but also like the funniest moment in your time supporting the club?
Yeah, there's been plenty of them, and I was trying to think of this earlier actually, which games can I make reference to, and one that stands out to me as a funny moment in my like travels following Leeds and this period of Championship and League One was about 3 or 4 years ago. I did a Tuesday night trip down to Ipswich, so we got the train about 10 a.m. from Leeds. Actually, me and one of my friends from uni. Took us about 5 hours to get to Ipswich, which is the arse end of nowhere, like the most inaccessible place on planet Earth. it's like down to Peterborough and then down like a muddy road for about 90 miles. So we went down on the train. We got there about mid-afternoon, and then we had an afternoon boozing in Ipswich and on a Tuesday, and it was brilliant. There's been about 3,000 Leeds fans down there, so. It was a great afternoon. There was this pub just down the road from our hotel, which we kind of set up in, and there was about hundreds of Leeds fans in there. God knows how much we drank. Made it to the game, 7:45, in the concourse, just as it kicks off, and you think, oh, we'll have one more pint. The first 5-10 minutes, have another pint. Leeds go 1-0 up, so I'm in the concourse still having a pint. I've done my 5-hour journey down to Ipswich and my full afternoon boozing. Miss the Leeds go 1-0 up, so you think, right, best go up to the stand. Get up to the stand, watch the next 80 minutes, and we go on to lose 2-1. And that I think just sums up really like that was probably this was when I was about 21, 22, so I've probably been starting to go and watch the club for quite regularly for maybe 7 or 8 years at that point, and that was when I was like, yeah, that probably sums up the last 7 or 8 years. Like a great day out, a lot of miles, a lot of beer, but then just for the most like frustrating and like unlucky 80-minute stint really. And then a 5-hour journey back up north the next day. So that'll be one that'll always stand out to me. That journey down to Ipswich. I also remember a Tuesday night at Ellen Road, and I think we were 3-1 up at half time against Preston, and we went on to lose the game. I think it was 6-4 in the second half, and I think John Parkin got 3 or 4 against us. And and again, you just think, how can you throw away a 3-1 lead? And home for Preston on a Tuesday night. That'll always stick in my mind as well. So I think I'll tell you what though. I've really got a soft spot for the Football League, and I've said for so long to a lot of people. Like, we'll always reflect on as Leeds fans, and we'll always say we'll always look back on the journey, and I think we'll just appreciate how brilliant it was, because the Football League's so competitive week in, week out. You'd be playing different clubs of different sizes, and you really couldn't predict the scorelines. You could be playing Rotherham, or you could be playing Aston Villa, and every game's kind of there to be won. And every season as well, you go into a season, and if you said predict who's going to go up and who's going to go down, you'd struggle to find accurate predictions. Like, everyone would bank on Stoke being a strong contender in the Championship the last couple of years, and kind of look how they've fared. So I think we'll definitely miss that going into each week, really not knowing what the outcome could be, and we'll miss just the kind of the diverse range of clubs, really, comparing from your Luton Towns to your Leeds United. So it's a lot of fondness on the Football League.
I'm glad they're back in the Prem, to be honest with you. I think the Prem needs the Leeds in it. It needs something different. Like, as long as Leeds don't become part of the mould where, pizzas are available in the concourse and stuff like that, and there's all the stuff that the Premier League's notorious for. If Leeds stick to what they actually are, and that sort of, working class city, I guess, on it, all right, it's a bit more cosmopolitan now, but that sort of core supporters making an atmosphere. I think the Premier League's crying out for a club like that, to be honest.
Completely. It needs just forget how big a club Leeds are. It just needed, for a start, another northern club, because and another Yorkshire club particularly, because before Sheffield United were promoted the season before, I think Newcastle's, which is my club, who we're going to come on to in a minute, our nearest away game was Burnley. And it's like that just shouldn't be the case for when you're in any division, but particularly the Premier League. It's become so southern focused, London dominated, and I have to say, no disrespect to fans of Bournemouth or Watford, but I think those two being relegated and Leeds United coming back to the Premier League, I really think it'll be a good thing for the division next season. Yeah,
I think a lot of fans will have that view as well, to be honest.
Yeah. I think your questions, your point's a good one, Trice, really, and that's my worry, that we don't want to lose that identity that we've got. Like, it's the last 3 or 4 years, the fan base feels like it's been stronger than ever. It's like the club and the fans feel more connected, but at the same time, it's kind of rejuvenated. It's the atmosphere and the passion that it's had since the 70s, 80s, 90s. It does feel still very honest and like a working class club, and the last couple of summers now, there's these links to potential Middle Eastern money that might come in, and it might take us that next level. But you think that's brilliant, and we'll always welcome the ability to go up as high as we can. But at the same time, do we then risk losing our identity, and do we turn ourselves into something that we don't particularly want to be? But I don't know. I've got a lot of hope and faith in the club. I think Ellen Road's a great stadium. For anyone, if you go past it nowadays, it looks like it could really do with a bit of a paint job on it. But it's a great place, and I wouldn't change it I wouldn't change the concourses there, or not be. I can't even physically sit in my seat there because it's that small, the gap. It's you couldn't sit down if you wanted to, so you've got no choice really to stand. And But I wouldn't change that for the world, and I wouldn't change having to queue like 25 minutes just to get to a urinal because there's only 3 like under in the toilet near me. It's just proper ground, a proper atmosphere, and hopefully like that'll bring, like you say, something a bit fresh to the Premier League, because I don't know, we don't need any more Brighton Amex stadiums coming into the to the Premier League. We need more of, like you say, the Yorkshire and northern like culture, I think. So looking forward to the season ahead, but definitely look back with some fondness over the Championship. And I think, as I say, when I mentioned at the beginning, I think the one thing it did do is it definitely gave me an opportunity to like grow more closer to a club that when I was younger probably had to watch on from a little bit further afar, and hence why I spent a lot of time going to watch Scunthorpe United, just being 2 miles down the road, and only like almost giving away tickets to kids. I'd regularly go and watch Scunthorpe, so they are very much like my second club, and one that I follow still when I'm not following Leeds. But yeah, I think, as I say, as far back as I can, I think as soon as I came out as a baby, my dad put a Leeds shirt on me and I'd march on Together CD playing in the car, so I didn't really have a choice beyond that.
Do you think though, Dobby, like with because I know a lot of families out, like it is a big club, Leeds, and a lot of families would have done exactly the same as what you're just describing there. But do you think sometimes like the hype acts a bit negatively towards Leeds? So like they've got themselves in a position where they thought they've got, what's his name, Ben White at Brighton, who's been fantastic for him in the Championship, but it's like through the demand of Leeds fans, really, they've created a sort of unnecessary bidding war. Like, if Leeds had just gone quietly about their business maybe a year ago, they could have had Ben White for what 2 million maybe, and now Brighton are turning down bids for 25 million because it's like the free Ben White stuff. Is that, do you think sometimes like that really engaged fan base, I guess, do you think that sometimes affects like other clubs' view of Leeds, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it is the one club that I think probably draws the most opinions. Whether like some people just look up on them and say, yeah, can respect the kind of the size and the and kind of like the presence that the club has, and then other people have like a really strong like against opinion on Leeds. But I think, as you say, it is quite, especially on like social media nowadays, like you make a reference to there, like there's Leeds fans all over the place, and it probably draws unnecessary attention to certain situations. And I thought that about the Ben White one. I thought I don't know if this is good publicity or bad publicity, because it's going to drive like it's going to put more attention on something that's best left to like the professionals, really. Like, let the negotiators do their job and get the deal done. Don't give Brighton any kind of more. It puts pressure on them as a club and for their fan base as well to think we can't be seen to be giving in to like the pressure of Leeds United fans on social media. Like that makes them look stupid if they go and do that. I think it is a club that I think does draw a lot of opinions, and I think at times I think that can definitely like work off worse for like the club as well. So I agree with the Ben White situation. I think it was definitely made more difficult by some of the exposure it was getting online.
I think what sums up Leeds to me, having lived in like the city, I think it's absolutely crying out as a place to have like top level sport in terms of all its other sporting aspects are sort of like world renowned, if that makes sense. And it just seems that the past few years Leeds United have not been sort of at what they should be, really. And I think
not maximising the potential.
Yeah, I think now they're back in the Premier League. To be honest, I'm glad they're back in the Prem, and I think the Premier League will be glad for everything that Leeds brings as well. Like there'll be a few issues, as there always is with Leeds, rightly or wrongly, regarding like a police point of view. But I'm sure the Premier League will be secretly really excited about having Leeds back in, and I think even like the big six teams will enjoy going to, and I think that's happened this season where like Klopp's come out and said how much he's liked Bramall Lane and stuff like that, and the Big Six have liked going to like Bramall Lane for its traditional element. And I think having Ellen Road back in the Premier League, all right, no fans in a minute, but hopefully towards the end of the season, the Premier League and a packed out Ellen Road are going to be a good spectacle for me as a neutral, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I guess to round off on it, I think for me it's I think like in hindsight, the last 10, 20 years we've had some pretty bad lows, and the stature of the club has really suffered, and we've rightfully not been in a position to attract like the names that we'd want to. There's been the club's not had a structure in place or the kind of vision in place to warrant like good players to want to come and play for us, and I think that's been quite a hard pill to swallow for Leeds fans, because they are quite passionate, and they do, especially some of the older ones, remember like fonder days when the club was a big draw. But for our generation, it's just not been that, and I think it's been a fair reflection of how we've performed on the last 10 years. But now we're in a position where I think we can actually build on some. We've got a good, in my opinion, a good ownership group now, and we've got a great management team with Bielsa, and we've got the fan base, as I say, back as one. So I think we've got a foundation now where like the millennial generation, people from 15 to 20, can actually have a club that's potentially worthy of some of the kind of remarks that people make on social media, and people say that Leeds are in this bracket with certain top half and top 6 Premier League clubs. Like, we've got the foundation now, so yeah, it's exciting times. We'll see what comes.
If we move on to, I don't really want to move on to my club in a way, because I feel like you two have both given really sort of accurate and insightful descriptions of what it's like to be a Scunthorpe fan and what it's like to be a Leeds fan, and I feel like I'm going to come in now and just provide a load of niche
slag off
stuff.
Mike Ashley for the next 10 minutes.
I was actually going with a more like sort of niche approach of just like what it's like to sit in the Leazes West corner at Newcastle during a 0-0 against Burnley. But I'll proceed anyway and give sort of as we're going for like sort of just a gentle introduction so that the listeners know a bit more about ourselves. So yeah, I'm a Newcastle United fan. Again, like both of you two, really, I didn't have any choice in the matter. My family on my mum's side all come from the northeast, and you know, that was it. I was a Newcastle fan from as young as I can remember, really, just putting a Newcastle shirt straight away. But obviously, only when I moved there to go to university when I was 18 could I become a season ticket holder, because before I didn't live close enough. You know, moved around a bit as a kid and never lived sort of within 2.5 hours of Newcastle. So I could go to, you know, I went to like try and get up to like 5-6 games a season, but never any fit. But I think when you get a season ticket at Newcastle, it's a bit more like you sort of see the real side of the crowd in a way, and it's like it can be hilarious at times, like some of the discussions that you overhear and some of the people that go to the game. It's just what I love about supporting my team, really. I think it's one of the, like, not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's one of the crowds in the country where you don't just see like men aged between 20 and 40 going to the game. You see the granddads, you see young kids, you see a lot of women. It's like just quite a mixed crowd, really, which I like. I know some people perhaps wouldn't like that. They just want like a sort of aggressive, constantly, you know, quite macho crowd in a way. But I feel like there's a bit more of a mix at Newcastle. Maybe that comes from having like a largish stadium, although it's not that large anymore. But you know, 10 years ago it was one of the biggest in the country. It's like, it's nice hearing you two talk about your clubs, because I feel like at the moment, I know like Scunthorpe have had a difficult couple of seasons, but it feels like you're looking ahead to the new season with a degree of optimism, and like your fan bases are pretty united. And I kind of miss I miss having like a fully united fan base at Newcastle, because we've not had it since 2008, 2009 really. So because there's just an element of like, there's still a lot of loyal fans who are boycotting and refusing to go to games. I mean, I'm not one of those fans, but I respect the choice that, you know, those that have had to make that choice. But it just affects the crowd now, and it's such a shame, because Newcastle is such a like football dominated city, as is Leeds, I think. But because they're one club, when people always say that and they go, well, they're one club cities, what do you expect? But it's like, well, yeah, but that's not a negative. That's brilliant for me. I mean, it's just, I always felt that even when I visited Newcastle, not for a match, you always got the sense of like, you'd go and visit the ground anyway, because it was so city central, and everything kind of leads up to the cathedral on the hill, as it's known in the city. Like, everything points
it's a very
towards
sorry
it.
Cathedral.
It is at the moment, Trey. It's got a
plastered
lot of
with Sports Direct merch.
It needs a repaint, and like, just to get some of the traditional followers back through the gate. And we're still unfortunately quite a way off that. But even like, just like minor trivial things, like when I was at university and like mates or whatever would be in the library doing a library session on a Saturday afternoon. So they could often, like, if Newcastle win a big game, like I remember once we beat Chelsea at home when they were undefeated in the Premier League, and like you could hear the roar from the university library, like the roar just went across the city, and like, it's just one of those places in the country where, like, even if you go shopping in town straight after the game or before or whatever, everyone's asking like, oh, are you going to the match today, or oh, what was it like, who played well. Like, it's just that sort of place, really. I'll come on to, like, just quickly some of the trivial stuff I was thinking about, because you do just hear some strange discussions in the Newcastle crowd. We are a crowd that often likes to sort of, is more interested in barracking our own players than like getting onto the opposition's back. Like, if someone misplaces a pass inside the first 5 minutes, you can hear that groan, and you just know they're getting like dog's abuse from like the touchline holders tickets for the rest of the game. Or like, if the worst is if we concede 1 or 2 early, like inside 15 minutes, and you see people going for the exit doors, but like they're always abusing players on their way out. They won't just walk out. Like, they'll just have to scream at someone. I remember we went 4-1 down to Portsmouth in 2008, and we were 3-0 down within like 10 minutes or not long after. And this Brazilian centre half called Caçapa was having an absolute nightmare for Newcastle. And you could just, like, the third goal, I think he just sort of fell over, and John Utaka ran away, streaked away and scored. And you could just sort of hear like the majority of a 50,000 crowd just abusing this guy who'd only moved to the city 2 months earlier, and he just looked like he wanted to leave and go leave the club straight away. Like, funny, we're just a very odd crowd in a way, and just quite a funny crowd. I mean, I think the stereotypical view of Newcastle is like, oh, it's all people who have like really thick Geordie accents and have like take the shirts off for a full game. And to be honest, that sort of perception is true of the away crowds. But when you're in St James's, it's just a right old mix and match of like just funny people who just, and some people who like travel from really ridiculous, like travel from Scandinavia, travel from wherever for like every home game, and it's just a funny place to be, really, on a Saturday, even when we're losing. And I think in the current climate of not being able, I mean, because I couldn't go to a few games. I couldn't go to a game for basically 2 months before lockdown anyway, because of like journalism exams and various things. And so I've not been to a game now since New Year's Day this year. And we got battered, lost 3-0 at Leicester, against Leicester. But I still miss it. I miss being a part of that crowd and just having like the experience of going to a match. Like, best crowd I think I've ever been into. Just even if you're on your own, it's just hilarious, some of the stuff you'll hear. And I'm gonna try and provide more examples over the following weeks.
Jack, I've spent my time at university up in the northeast for you in Newcastle. I managed to get to quite a few. Well, actually, I worked at St James's for a bit and the Stadium of Light. And to be honest, I get what you mean about the fan base, and I think it's quite similar to the Sunderland fan base as well. It seems to be more common and a lot easier for like both sets of fans up there to jump onto their own team much quicker than the opposition. And I guess it's probably more so Newcastle than Sunderland. More so that I think just frustration of like there's so much more potential there, and it's just this consistent mediocre like performance, and just kind of no signs of it's going to come to an end anytime soon. So I'd always like have a bit of a laugh when I'd be in St James's and just think it did just seem like more easier for the home fans to turn on their own than actually get on the opposition and make it a more difficult place for the opposition to come. St James's and Stadium of Light, even worse so when they were going down, just became harder places for the home team to be at, because it was just frustrated people there. And it wasn't, I don't think, at the players. It's just more at the clubs in general. But it does make for quite a strange environment.
I've seen some good players crumble, like some good home players just not be able to play under those conditions. It's I wouldn't even say like. Hopefully, if a takeover ever happens, I think we'll get the stronger element to our support back in the ground. And even if I'm not expecting us to be challenging for the top 6 or whatever, but just be stable in the Premier League and just try and have a go at the cups, then I think we'll sell out more, and the crowd it'll be a better sort of spread of the crowd. At the moment, it is a little too negative, but the ones of us that do like go even during the Ashley era, you still get some moments of comedy, but like you say as well, they are also quick to turn. Like when things go wrong, it is hilarious.
It's sort of like going to the theatre, I think. Yeah, like that's how I sort of see it as a neutral. Like I don't know, like Newcastle, like when they're playing well, Newcastle, like don't you? You can tell on TV and stuff like that. And like we say, Jack, I've been to Newcastle a few times, and you notice in the city when the team are doing well. But like I don't know, it just have that sort of like pantomime villain type vibe. Whenever Mike Ashley's name's mentioned, it's like a unanimous boo, and then whenever a pass is misplaced or something like that, it's like the same, and then something good, it's like a big cheer. Do you know what I mean? I think
you're completely spot on, mate. I remember. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go on. You carry on after.
All I was going to a quick anecdote, like just to give you a variation of how the crowd's changed over the years. My first ever game, I remember I was like, I must have been 7 or 8 years old, 6 years old, maybe, I don't know. But we were playing Charlton Athletic at home, and it was in the days when that season we finished 3rd in the Premier League behind Arsenal and Man United. So it was a good team, but we went 1-0 down in that game. Jason Newell scored for Charlton, and the crowd instantly roared. Like the Newcastle crowd roared and were like, "Come on, get back in it." This is in a team that was good and finished in the top 4 2 years in a row. So it's not like they were fighting relegation, but that's how it can be. I think that's how I hope it can, and it can be like that even when they're not to that level. Like there used to be an element that when we went a goal down, we responded even more aggressively and put even more pressure on the opposition and tried to inspire the home players, and we won that game 2-1. And my mum always says she remembers my reaction as a kid to the swearing and the noise after that Charlton goal, because I just loved it. I was like, yeah, come on, really into it as a kid. And you don't get many opportunities like that when you're really young. So anyway, that was just, but I think that wouldn't happen now if we went a goal down to a team we're expected to beat early on. It'd just be you'd hear the groan, and yeah.
I love that Newcastle team, that era, Jack. It's sort of, when you watch back on Premier League years, some real sort of stellar players from that era. Obviously, Shearer and stuff like that, but then niche foreign imports like Laurent Robert and Babiaro and stuff like that. I remember going out in Newcastle once and getting a taxi back, and everyone just consumes it, don't they? There, so was obviously drunkenly chatting football with the taxi driver, and it really surprised him that I actually sort of was able to throw back to that early 2000s era and sort of list like, you know, Babiaro as a good left back, Boom Song at centre back who wasn't convincing and stuff. But it was a really sort of like enjoyable. They were so close, really, to sort of becoming a stellar club, I guess.
Oh mate, that team, I love that team, and when
Bellamy and Shearer up front.
Bellamy and Shearer up front's the best strike force I've ever seen, and I think there's an argument to say they're probably the best strike force Newcastle's ever had in the modern era. Like, and Gary Speed, probably one of my favourite footballers of all time. Like when we signed Woodgate from Leeds, Jonathan Woodgate, suddenly that team was like next level. And they honestly, I'm not saying it because I'm a Newcastle fan, or maybe you could possibly accuse me of being a bit biased, but I genuinely think that when we signed Woodgate, we weren't that far away from Arsenal and Manchester United at the time. And the problem was the following summer, the summer directly after that, Chelsea were taken over by Abramovich, and we lost a Champions League qualifier to Partizan Belgrade on penalties, which I remember because I think I shed tears for the first time in my life at a football game. And like that's suddenly within those few weeks, Chelsea getting taken over and becoming a force, and us not losing the Champions League, like you could just feel things were slipping away. And even though we had a great year after that, yeah, it's just a shame that that team didn't stick around longer. I mean, they should never have sacking Bobby Robson was the start of the decline, but don't get me started on that because I could be here for another half an hour.
So just on that then, like developing sort of, you two sort of both gave a good insight into your dad's sort of encourage you to support their teams. Well, me and my dad actually support different teams, and I'm sure, he looks at me with disgust whenever I celebrate his rival team's goal. My dad's a Grimsby fan, I'm a Scunthorpe fan, and he did really try, bless him, to be honest. Grimsby were in the Championship at the time, and I just wasn't engaged. I think I saw a 6-3 and 6-5, and it just still want for me. There was something about
Blundell Park.
There was something about living in Scunthorpe that I wanted to support Scunthorpe, really. But obviously, you two are aware I've got my little boy Alfie now, and he's sort of, alright, he's only a toddler still, but there will come a point if he's even interested in football, he might take an interest in scootering or, YouTube Minecraft building or something, and if he does, good luck to him. I'm sure he'll support the best one. But if he is interested in football, on my doorstep, sort of like the East Lancashire way on, within sort of 25 minutes, I'll just list these teams: Accrington, Burnley, Blackburn, Bolton, Salford City, Man City, Man United, Rochdale, Oldham. So I'm already facing a bit of an uphill battle with Man City and Man United in particular, and Burnley, to be honest, as to try get him to support Scunthorpe. But then you go that radius, an extra 20 miles on top of that. You've got Liverpool, Everton, Leeds, Bradford, Huddersfield, Preston, Tranmere, Wigan. So all of a sudden there's, a quarter of the Football League within an hour's drive of my house. It's going to be an uphill battle for me to get Alfie to support Scunthorpe, isn't it? So what should I do? Who should he support? Any tips?
I feel like, the best thing for our, to be selfish for a second, Trice, the best thing for our ratings would be to conduct a live draw out of a hat with those clubs you just mentioned, and just say to Alfie when he's old enough, this is the team you've been chosen to support, and just like introduce him to football like that. Like you get chosen, the club chooses you, and you have to support them.
Starts.
We
pull a team out, and then you start just putting objects around the house, just and no one starts to support that team.
To be honest, I think if it was down to me, obviously I want him to support Scunthorpe with me, and I will take him to games as we get older. But a lot of the pubs in our sort of like village, if you like, they do like a pint and a pie and transport to Burnley's home games for a tenner. And I think like that going forward, that might be something I flirt with. If he says, look, Dad, I don't want to go to Morecambe to watch Scunthorpe draw 0-0.
Yeah. Burnley's quite a good one to have, because I think well, they've been in the Premier League quite a fair few seasons now, haven't they? But I think there'll probably be periods when they drop down to the Football League and have quite a long period down there, and then there'll be periods when they have quite an established run at the Premier League, probably similar to the likes of Blackburn and what Bolton have done recently. So I think there'll always be that unpredictability there, and I think you'll probably get to experience quite a lot on a good traditional football club. So I don't think Burnley is a bad one to have, on your doorstep.
Yeah,
I think that's quite a good club.
I feel like Trice that he'll never not have if he's into football, presuming he's a football fan, he'll never not have a small amount of affection for his dad's team anyway.
Yeah,
I can't see him unless he becomes a Grimsby supporter or something. He's not going to be anti-Scunthorpe, so that's something you could probably. I mean, I don't like the notion of saying, "Oh, you can support two clubs the same amount," but you could probably have that. You could have an affection for Scunthorpe, a bit like Dobby does, I suppose, for Scunthorpe.
Yeah,
and then also support. I mean, I suppose to be honest, if you've been cold about it and you said, right, no glory supporting, but who's going to be the best shape in 30 years' time from those clubs you mentioned? Possibly Salford. Salford could have a steady rise over the next sort of 10 to 20 years and be solid championship club.
Maybe I should do an ultimate FIFA sim or football manager sim and see when Alfie's 12 who was actually highest ranking out of all these clubs.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That is a good idea. That is a great idea. Yeah. But I think Salford will come out strongly if that's the formula. I mean, which club is closest to you?
So we sort of literally triangulate Burnley, Blackburn and Manchester, really. It's sort of 20 minutes either way, really, where we live. I mean, we did actually...
Far, try.
Well, Accrington, yeah, they're sort of the main ones, really. That first list I gave you, even Rochdale, Oldham, they're all really close, within 25 minutes. I work in Salford, so I can get there in half an hour from my house. Manchester, we used to live there. We were sort of 3 miles away from the Etihad. It's part of me just thinks no, you bollocks to that. You are supporting Scunthorpe, but we are going to Plymouth today.
I think like Jack says, I think if he doesn't fully support Scunthorpe, he'll probably always have that soft spot and affection anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd just let it kind of run its own path. But I know that. But then when I look at it from my own point of view, I think I'd struggle to not really force Leeds United on my child. So I
poor kid.
Yeah, exactly. So when I look at it from that point of view, yeah, it makes it a little bit. I can get why it's a tough one for you. So,
I honestly don't think that I could. I almost am going away from making any child of mine support Newcastle just because I know the pain, especially if there's been no change in ownership. Hopefully there has by that time. But I honestly think I'd just say, you know what, you could just do your own thing. I'm not going to inflict this misery on you.
Trice, I like the sounds of Oldham or Rochdale because in the 20 years that Alfie might follow him, there'll probably variation of position finishes in League One will be 6 places.
Well, yeah,
the
either that
or lifetime will be 14th, and the worst will be 21st.
I've got quite a good mate who's an Oldham fan. I've got a good mate who's an Oldham fan, and obviously I play football around Oldham, where I'm now, and that as a club is quite an interesting one because almost annually they have a BBC News story where they've not paid the players or the floodlights haven't been paid for us. So it is sort of a bit of a shambles behind the scenes. So I'd be a bit nothing against them, but I'd be a bit concerned of the list location wise. Bolton, Rochdale, Oldham, they could well and truly not exist by the time Alf is paying to go through the gates. So it might have to be just a toss up between Burnley and one of the Manchester clubs, but ideally not
Burnley. I like Burnley.
Yeah, I don't think you can go City and United. I think it's too glory hunting. Although, just a slight side issue from this Trice, I think there's something you should watch out for, which is sort of Alfie knowing that this is a sort of an issue for you, and then using it against you. Because I remember like when Newcastle, when I was like in my early days of supporting Newcastle, and I'd be really upset and angry and emotional when they lost, probably lost a Champions League game or whatever at the time. Looking back, I don't think I'd be as upset now. But I used to say to my mum, I'd be like, "Oh, you forced this on me," and
a 2-1 home loss to Mansfield might turn into a family feud. So, you do run the risk of that.
When the day comes, at least there's going to be a decision. Something to talk about anyway for him in the future. Got it all to look forward to.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a good sort of thing to check back on throughout the series. Like, see if
as the
he's
years
made
progress.
Yeah,
the podcast.
see what more.
Still supporting them.
Yeah, what connection has Alfie made year by year, just slowly making our way through. I'll sort of, just before we go, because I know we're running on time a bit, but I'll bring us quickly to the social corner of the bar, and check in with what we talked about a bit slightly in our first episode, where, as you know, for anyone who's listened will know that I was sort of making the point about the question marks around Pele and some of the stories he's told down the years. Potentially.
Is he a fraud, basically?
Yeah, basically, is he a fraud? That was.
You're having it off. You're calling him out, Jack. That's not bullshit.
Okay, essentially, I'm calling Pele out. Yeah, yeah. That is what's happened. You're both right. And I've found some sort of, I consider it evidence today on Twitter.
Jack, have you got one of these walls at your home with just loads of things pinned up and loads of lines connecting things?
Like Carry On Homeland, just like absolutely.
Yeah.
Stays up till 3 a.m. drawing pictures of Pele.
This is right. This is my evidence for today, and you two can decide whether it's bullshit or whether I'm looking too much into it. Actually, it's not from today. I found it today, but it's actually from the 25th of March, 2019. Pele tweeted, "Happy birthday to Sir Elton John. I went to watch him live once. He pointed me out, and I had to leave before the crowds got too big." I mean, to me, that just reeks of bullshit. And the top response is, "Oh, come on, Pele, not this, mate." So someone's come in with wahaha. Pele is absolutely full of shit.
But surely the timeline of that, though, Jack, that is actually something that if you want to go on this sort of crusade against Pele, you can dig that out. There will be people in attendance with Pele who also saw Elton John in wherever. Can they confirm that happened? And if that holds up, then Jack, you have to sort of bow down to Pele forever. And if not, then it's another step towards debunking him.
I think it is a step towards debunking him, because another response of just saying, "Not this again, mate." My issue with it is, yes, he could have seen Elton John live. I believe that. I even can believe that Elton John pointed to Pele, pointed him. But then I had to leave before the crowds got too big. What does that mean? What? So the crowd was getting bigger? I mean, surely it was a ticketed event. People weren't then getting in because Pele was there. That's just bollocks. And I just
Elton
feel.
John was just stood there performing to himself because everyone was just flocking to Pele at the other side of the arena.
I mean, he did tweet a photo of him and Elton John, so obviously they didn't meet. But I just don't feel like it's enough. And somebody else on Twitter, Bearded Genius, who's got got over 150,000 followers, tweeted on his Pele's last birthday, "Happy birthday, Pele. Imagine being the best player in the world and counting a load of fake goals in your official stats. Top shithouser."
I'm still hooked on the Elton John thing, to be honest. I've just got this image of Elton on the keyboard, Rocket Man, and then spotlight goes into the crowd. Elton gives him a little point to Pele, and just like a invasion. The mosh pit just
invasion of middle-aged women.
That's the other thing. Like, at what point is he getting pointed out? Like you say, Trice, he's not doing it mid-song, is he? He's not. He can't be stopping to point Pele out. And how's he even seen Pele if there's a crowd full of people? It's just that whole story just doesn't add up to me.
I can't see an Elton John audience being too like overwhelmed by Pele. Like, my mum would go to Elton John, and Pele, like, she wouldn't be going to see Pele. Like, she'd be pretty fixed on Elton. So, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think you've got a good point there, Jack. It's another tick in like the right direction, really.
But I think as well, Elton surely would have been involved with Watford at the time, and you're not telling me that Elton's not tried. You know, say, look, here's a yellow shirt. Get you on it. You know, is some sort of concert or fundraising thing where Pele could have banged in a load of goals at Watford. I think. I don't know. I think Elton would have done that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one to come back to at least. And my final quick sort of social element from the social corner. I mean, I've sent you to both this already, but I'll play it for the listeners' benefit. This is this was actually from like just not far into lockdown, but this was a video posted up on social media of Andy Gray and Richard Keys doing a special on football for Benin Sports at the start of lockdown. I'll just play that now.
This will change the way we think about people. This will change the way we think about the fire services that happened after the Twin Towers went down. You know, but what happens? First responders,
Use the correct phrase.
I mean, that is the most Partridge thing I've seen from in a long time, and it's just classic Richard Keys to come up with it. Tricey, what are your thoughts on Richard Keys?
Well, he is actually Alan Partridge, isn't he? Or Alan Partridge and David Brent combined into sort of one football pundit, if you can call it that. It makes me laugh at them too, because they're just absolutely sitting on probably a bucket of cash, aren't they, in wherever they get filmed at.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff he comes out with is just...
I could just see Partridge doing that, just coming in with the first responders. Yeah, let's get it right. like Richard, no one's that bothered. No one's watching your show is that bothered about.
You know, it's a roll of the eyes from the producer, definitely, isn't it? That just like,
yeah,
here he goes
100%.
You can tell he's just sat there and he's hearing it unfold, and he's like, oh, first responders, and then he's just like, I'm gonna have to correct him.
yeah.
Just got the record straight.
Yeah. I actually quite used to like Andy Gray as well, but he's just kind of now he's just sort of become attached to Richard Keys's nonsense. But you know, he gives good value. I think that's probably us done for.
Just quickly, before we go, I'd like to shout out Paul Smith, not the fashion designer. He's engaged with us a few times on, I think he's a physio in Sheffield. He's engaged with us a few times on Instagram. Salt of the earth, like, you know, to say how grassroots we are, just started. You know, he was giving us some tips, and he actually messaged John Parkin and was like, these three guys are doing a podcast. Have you got any tips for a new starter? And we didn't ask him to do that. So massive shout out to Paul for helping us there, and hope you enjoy listening, Paul.
Yeah, cheers, Paul.
Yeah, cheers, Paul.
And if Paul Smith, the fashion designer, does want to get in touch, I think extra large will do me.
I wonder who will enjoy the show more, like Paul Smith, the physio, or Paul Smith, fashion designer.
I imagine if Paul, the physio, enjoys it, I imagine it'd be him more than the fashion designer. But you know, we can try and get it out there. Let's see if we can tap him up.
Yeah, no, we do, and we appreciate the support as well. Yeah, well, that's it for this week, boys. We'll call time on the bar. Thanks for keeping me company again, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers.